Ravens!
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience. Week 16 main slate, DraftKings picks, lineups, preview, ownership, injuries, plus a mini little look at the Christmas Day. I was going to say Thanksgiving. Christmas Day slate. 3-gamer on DraftKings as well. There are listeners' leagues for both of these tournaments. There's 350 spots left in the main slate for Sunday. There's 500 spots left for the Christmas Day. Both links are down in the description. Right now, all of them are rake-free. All of them are 3 max entries. So I suggest you go get your spots right now, because I have a feeling by the time the people get around to watching this show that all of a sudden it's going to be absolutely full. And hey, you want a rake-free sweat on a Christmas Day? Who wouldn't want that when you're getting away from your family and watching some football? You might as well get that extra sweat going on where there's no rake involved. Tambo from Ship It Nation, code Mayo at Ship It Nation, will get you 10% off all of the packages over there. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Yeah, excited. We got a big sports weekend ahead. That's what I like. You mentioned the Christmas Day stuff, but don't forget, NBA still plays. I know NFL tried to jump in on their stuff and say, if you're not going to get the viewership, we'll take it from you. No problem. Excited for especially Monday Night Football with the Ravens and the 49ers. I'm very excited for that game, being a Ravens fan, but lots of good action over the weekend. The 2-gamer, the Sunday Night Football stuff, all the Christmas Day things. Yeah, family probably won't see us very often.
No. That's the way it really should be.
Best way to do it, yeah. As long as we're winning money. If you're winning, it counts.
Listen, I'm going to be up early with the kids. We'll get all the presents out of the way. Then by noon, it'll be, I got to go watch some football.
Daddy might be leaving a little bit before noon at my household, but I'll be up early with the kids. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I'll have to retreat to my basement and watch everything down there, and hopefully no one bothers me. And I think that's probably going to be the same way for a lot of people this week. Let's talk about running backs before we get into anything on the main slate. Right now, projection-wise, in terms of ownership, Ty Chandler, Devin Singletary, Jonathan Taylor, and Tony Pollard are your top 4 in terms of ownership. I mean, I get Jonathan Taylor. It doesn't seem like Zach Moss is going to come back for this game. His first game back. I don't think Trey Sermon or that other guy is going to eat too much into what Jonathan Taylor is doing, so that makes a ton of sense. Singletary is tough, only because he got all the carries a week ago, ended up with 4 receptions, 2 of them coming in stupid overtime. Not fun when you bet the under on his receptions, and then that's their only play in the extra period. But I think it could swing too wildly back the other way. I feel like it's a week-to-week thing with Singletary, that we know what the upside is. We know that his carry upside and touch upside is huge. But if it swung back to 50-50 with Pierce this week, in like the worst matchup you could have on the ground, it doesn't seem like a spot where I want to eat the chalk on Devin Singletary.
Yeah, it's tough. That's one of the things that comes up. And even that game, when we get to it with obviously the Flacco stuff on the other side, and Njoku's just the best tight end since sliced bread. You now know he's the best, so you're going to have people be able to stack this up, and then just Singletary just fits in that. So I think in cash games and whatnot, you'll find that be a popular play. I'm interested, though, because you didn't mention Chuba Hubbard in your stuff, and I've seen him getting a little bit of steam here lately, played heavily by some of the sharper players last week just based on his workload the last couple of weeks. If that continues, I mean, he's only $300 more, and he's only $100 more than Ty Chandler, but I'm with you on the Singletary side of things. I'm also probably feeling the same, at least as of now, around the Pollard stuff.
I just don't play Pollard. Like, who is won money playing? Did you see the cut sweats thing that they released?
Yes.
So if anyone plays golf, you can go to my Twitter, you can go to Nelson's Twitter. People were tweeting it around. He basically created a Spotify Unwrapped, or Wrapped, I guess, about the people that you type in your DraftKings username. It tells you who you played the most, who won you the most money, who lost you the most money. When we all do that for NFL this year, if that's a thing, Tony Pollard's going to be at the top of that list as the player that lost you the most money.
Yeah, Tony Pollard, Cam Young, handshake.
Yeah.
Right there, put that out, you'll see it. It's definitely something, yeah. That's what I would say, and I think what it is, too, what this reminds me of, I guess, is that obviously we're getting to this 9-game slate and breaking it all down. The last game on the slate has the big total. How do you get a piece of it? You can't, it's expensive to get to those guys like Dak or Lamb or any of the big ones that are in that game, so why not just get a piece of Tony Pollard? He should be good here. Like, I think that it's that kind of feeling, and people saw it work with James Cook against Dallas when no one could get a piece of that game, but you could get James Cook there. Now you're thinking we can just do the same thing, but flip to the other side and go to Tony Pollard here. So feels kind of like that. And you have guys like Rashad White, Breece Hall, Chuba Hubbard, Bijan that maybe people aren't going to want to touch as much, and they're fine there too. I think there's some other options here.
Much rather play Rashad White.
Definitely.
Who's just great every single week.
Yeah.
Hubbard I only have down at 10%. Maybe that ends up boosting up throughout the course of the week as steam kind of piles in, but it doesn't seem like people are super excited to play Chuba Hubbard. I don't think anyone's super excited to play any Carolina Panther.
Right, and the good news is too is like if game log watchers are not going to be interested because it's a 12-11 the last two games. It's almost like the Zach Moss situation where look at all the volume, 22, 23, 25 carries are his last three games with a couple targets in each to go with it, but just didn't get the results for anybody. So now maybe that's why some people will come down on that one, but I think he's still fine at 5,700.
I do think that there is a significant difference between the volume of Chuba Hubbard and the Zach Moss volume that we saw for the past 3 weeks. Because the Zach Moss stuff was like, oh, he had 12 carries inside the 5-yard line and just didn't get into the end zone. I don't know if Chuba Hubbard has any carries inside the 5-yard line because they don't get close to the goal line.
Yeah, they don't get in there enough. But again, you feed a guy that many times, there's opportunity. So if it wants to come in at 10%, I'm more than fine.
Hey, you
with
want 100K with Chuba Hubbard, so I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not here to
3-touchdown game. I mean, that guy can do it. We know it. So I'm not fully on him. I just think it's interesting that when you list those top guys there, it's like people are taking their stands at least early on. I mean, we're already at Friday, and people are saying this. Plus, we got the holidays, like we talked about. So maybe there is some of that laziness in, could be both sides. People just saying, I'll just go with what it says, I'm happy, or ownership could be way off. Remember the week of the American Thanksgiving, Jonathan Taylor, can't play him at 35%. Okay, then comes in at 18% and does quite well. So you never know how it's going to go week to week.
Ty Chandler deserves to be the highest owned running back, at least in my mind, if Madison is a definite no-go, which is not official as of yet.
I was just going to ask that because I was going to say that's the other thing about this spot. But obviously, if Madison's out, honestly, Chandler was going to be good either way, but you want Madison out for him to be this good, and that's fine. When that happens, he's good. I'm good with that.
And it's $5,600.
Yeah.
So that's like an every lineup type guy.
Also, lots of cool ways to use him this week, too, that I think we'll get to when we get to stacking.
We can get to that. So the 3 games overall that I'm looking at, obviously you talked about the Dallas-Miami, the total on that is 50. Detroit and Minnesota, the first game on the slate is the second highest total at 47. That's an indoor game, which is really nice. I was surprised that, and maybe the ownership will reflect this, but maybe Flacco, the Browns pass catchers, maybe you just have to use them a little bit differently. But Cleveland and Houston's only a 40 game total. That's indoors. Like, that's a pretty good spot. And we've seen Cleveland's defense doesn't really travel. They give up points on the road.
Yeah, it looks like a good letdown spot for Joe Flacco. He's elite now. Everyone knows it. So can't wait to see how this plays out. But
well, he's putting up like Jameis stats from 4 years ago because he's throwing a ton of picks, which is great because it keeps him throwing the entire time.
It keeps him out there and back out on the field. Yeah, I think if you want to go there, I feel like what's happening this week, though, is it's everyone who missed it already is now hopping on. They couldn't quite get there. They're like, I didn't expect him to do that with Njoku. I didn't expect him to do that with Njoku again and now bring other guys into the mix. And now people won their money on it last week. People literally won 100K, 200K plus using Joe Flacco stacks, and now it's time to hop on. But that total screams low for a reason. Like, why is it only 40?
I don't know. I thought it was surprising. It's probably because on the other side, Case Keenum is starting.
Yeah, he was 4K last week. It was a guy you actually could have went to probably there. It didn't work out. Maybe he's the guy that you play this week. The opposite, all it's not like crazy Flacco love, but there's enough.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't see this like the same Flacco love that you're seeing.
You never will see it on a quarterback. There's no quarterbacks getting love. Like you get Fields is the most.
Fields is getting love.
But it's nothing versus the field. This quarterback always gets spread out, and that's where people always confuse this. Go look at Njoku. He's right behind McBride this week.
Yes.
So what do you think happens there? That's how it all plays out. Again, it's not like he's going to dominate the slate. I'm just saying when we're talking one simple spot, one game, I think there's much better places to go on this slate, even with it only being 9 games.
I mean, you can probably do it pretty easily because I'm seeing 0 Amari Cooper, basically. So just use Amari Cooper instead of Njoku or use them both, and then all of a sudden you're off to the races.
Yeah, it's to me, like, again, people confuse this, and what you're saying is not what I'm saying. That's what people say. Like, it's not like it's getting that much owner. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the spot is bad. I don't like the spot. Just because you can get it unique doesn't make it good. I can get a lot of stacks unique this week.
I guess my question is, like, what's bad about the spot? That people are chasing it? That people think that he's good? Or I think objectively it is a good matchup for him.
Yeah,
for a guy that's throwing 40 times a game against a terrible pass defense.
Yeah, slate dynamics. I think there's like 3 or 4 better spots on this slate that you can go to.
Tell me the 3 or 4 better spots. I got to write them down.
Yeah, we're going to go to Minnesota, Detroit. You're going to talk about. I actually have interest in Minshew in that game going up against Atlanta. Another game that's in a dome with a real total that's sitting there. In the Arizona-Chicago game, I think you can go to the Kyler side, stack him with McBride. I know McBride's popular like Njoku, but I'd rather that one. And then obviously Dallas-Miami is just getting left alone because people say they can't afford it. But I think there's a ton of value on this slate. We can definitely get to that game.
Hey, we were able to jam in CeeDee Lamb, Steph Diggs, and Josh Allen last week.
People were making fun of that, but honestly, it was kind of interesting in the end.
Hey, if CeeDee had just had a better game,
yeah,
he was in the money.
Yeah, and then that's the other thing too. Last week, obviously, we had the late news on Tyreek break, right? We kind of thought that he was going to give it a go with the records and stuff he has on the line, and then in the end, he doesn't. And pretty much, no one, I think it was 3% in the main $20 Millie Maker that people moved to Waddle, who must have been at 0 before that, because
I ended up swapping onto Waddle because of Olave.
Yeah,
because we had Olave and a bunch of builds, and I didn't want to have to like go through and rebuild everything. I was like, who's a 1v1 in a wide receiver spot I can do here? It's like, oh, Waddle's like $100 less. I'll just move on to Waddle. Big success.
Yeah, and which was funny too, because Shaheed last week on main slate was 4,300. People were trying to make that work and obviously move to him. It didn't end up working out. And then last night, at a complete overprice on the showdown slate, Shaheed just smashes and crushes for everybody on there. So yeah, it's the way it works sometimes. But yeah, I think we're going to talk about these games. It's like, I think Minnesota, Detroit will get love. I think, speaking of love, there's some talks in that Green Bay, Carolina, but it's even uglier total, but just everyone's cheap. And if these Green Bay wide receivers are out, you actually end up getting an even tighter target tree at a very cheap cost to be able to fit studs in other places.
Now that we're at the cold time of year, as we know from being outside, where it's super windy, there's ice on the ground, it sucks outside, that would you not necessarily fade the games that are outside, but just have lower expectations for those games, that maybe you don't want to overstack them just because you're not on the fast track. It's not optimal conditions.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something to take into consideration. We make fun of it all the time. Hoop and I were recording a PGA course the other day where we talk about weather a lot. People make fun of the weathermen and all this stuff in the DFS industry, but the point is, it does factor in. We see this every single year in NFL DFS. It's nice when you can. That's one of the positives, going back to that Cleveland-Houston one. Like, at least you said, like, at least you know what you're getting there, and total can be whatever. We've talked about this all season, where total points doesn't always equal fantasy points. You can still get some cheaper stacks. But the weather is a factor, definitely, when you get to this time of the year.
Points per dollar wise at running back, Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, 1 and 2. That's expecting no A.J. Dillon in this game. And again, that's not official, but dude has a broken thumb. It's going to be tough to play with a broken thumb when you have to carry the ball. Chuba Hubbard, Bijan, Breece Hall, Ty Chandler, then Pollard, Rashad White. Antonio Gibson, I actually think, is in a very nice spot, too, for a guy that like literally no one is using. He's $5,200. He's playing the Jets. If there's the only path to not necessarily beating the Jets, but moving the ball okay against the Jets, is just dump offs to the running back. That could be 8 catches for Antonio Gibson. You get in once, and all of a sudden you have a 25-point day.
And he's been getting the targets. He got them again last week. Obviously, Robinson was out too, but just to say, at $5,200, 5 targets, still another spot. People just look, he didn't get any attempts or whatever, but in this type of game, you're looking for those dump offs.
And you have to remember too that they fell behind like 20 points to the Rams almost immediately. Why were they ever going to run the ball?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And against the Jets, it's unlikely the Jets with Trevor Siemian jump out to a 20-point lead.
Yeah, that's the question here, too, for Breece. I think that's, if I recall correctly, I got to think it's in the tidbits, but I put the Breece one in there. Somebody had it. I forget who it was. You can go check it. But it was really, the tidbit was that. It was like, if you think the Jets are winning and up in this game, his stats go through the roof, which makes sense. We've seen it with Derrick Henry and stuff like that, where people always just say it's on the weather, the Dehember stuff and all that. But with a guy like Breece Hall, it really has mattered over a decent sample that it's when they're in the game and ahead, that's when you want to play them. So if you think they're going to be at home winning this game, they are 3-point favorites. Then you wouldn't want to put Breece Hall into your lineups.
Weird about Breece Hall. Like, if you take out his like 4 or 5 like really explosive plays this year, I feel like he's been kind of trash.
Yeah, it's possible.
He's like the king of 1 yard per carry.
It's just you're playing a guy that has a ceiling. He's at 30, 22, 21, 27. He's had multiple games on a small season. I mean, you only have so many weeks. We're on week 16, 15 weeks of play. I can't remember if I think they had their bye. So it's like you got
everyone's had their bye
14
now.
Weeks. Yeah, I think the bye weeks are up. So 4 weeks out of the 14 that he's come through for a solid score. That's, again, you can get nothing out of him, but you could get something out of him. But again, build your lineups accordingly. You talked about earlier in the optimal, the Jets D made it in. Chances are if the Jets D are doing something here, it means they're probably up in the game, and we've got the other side throwing a bunch. You could pair that up instead of Garrett Wilson being popular with Breece Hall and hope that it means they're ahead in the game.
I do think the only 2 options from that game I would consider would be Gibson and Jets D. No Jets offensively. And if Breece Hall gets me, he gets me. But I don't think it's necessarily a 1v1. If the Jets D is doing well, that means they're winning in that game. Because Washington just wants to pass all the time anyway. And they love getting sacked. They love throwing picks. But the Jets hate scoring points. So it could just be 0-0.
Yeah, it's definitely possible.
Wide receiver Justin Jefferson, rating out as by far the highest owned coming into the week. Jefferson, then CeeDee Lamb, then Hopkins, McLaurin for reasons unknown, and then Tyler Lockett for reasons unknown. I was very surprised by some of these names. I guess it's not a great slate for wide receivers, but what you mentioned with Flacco just inherently going to get a boost because Njoku is so highly owned. The same thing is going to happen for a cheaper Mullins if everyone's playing Jefferson.
100%. That's where that comes from. So I think you got to be careful how you do it. But the most interesting factor of the entire slate, I think, is that it's 8,200 for Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he's coming in at like 10% right now. Yeah. Early indication versus 27 for Jefferson. It's because it's much easier to attach Mullins to Jefferson than it is to attach Goff to Amon-Ra. So simple setup. That's why I said it's really cool how you can use it here. I actually like the setup of, if you're using Mullins, use Chalky Chandler and then use Amon-Ra, where you're double flipping it, right? You're still getting away with using some potentially good chalk if Madison's out, like we could see, and then you just flip it. You have the $100 still, because a lot of those lineups would have it anyway. So a lot of people will have Mullins, Chandler, and then they'll have Jefferson and figure out where they're going on the other side. You can just mix in Amon-Ra instead of Jefferson in that spot. And Amon-Ra has come through tons of times where he does not need Goff because Goff's price, the statue of Goff that he is, all these other factors, where you just see a guy like Amon-Ra rack up 10 for 110 and a touchdown means nothing for Stafford in the grand scheme of things overall.
Or if you just wanted to flip it, don't use Jefferson, use Chandler, use Goff with Amon-Ra and like Laporta, because no one seems to be using Goff.
Or you can still use Chandler in that, because it's a way to break down the Chandler stuff, is get the ownership down on from Jefferson to Amon-Ra and get off of Mullins and go to Goff, but you will be spending more money that way. So,
points per dollar, Ridley number 1 with no Kirk and no Zay Jones. So that's
that one pops off the page with the price. It's gonna be
and Parker Washington should probably do the same as well. What's he, $3,800? He seems like a very good cheap option this week. Although we don't even know if Lawrence is playing quarterback, so that's tough.
Yeah, it looks on the side of more doubtful as of this morning, it sounds like. So we'll see how that goes.
Whereas Pittman seems like he probably is going to play for the Colts this week.
Yeah, he was full practice yesterday, actually. We had to look this up for something else.
Yeah, he still has to clear the protocol, but like he shed the red jersey, like he's practicing in full. He just has to actually like clear it by Saturday. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah, the report last night said it was worse. I thought it was unlikely to play. They've already come out and said it.
For who?
For Lawrence.
For Lawrence, yeah. But Pittman's probably
I think Pittman's in. That's why I have, again, two interests in, like, again, I know people are going to be looking at Jonathan Taylor and that side of it. I think, again, in Atlanta, can throw all over them. I think it's definitely an opportunity here for Minshew stacks.
The other I like the idea of Minshew stacks. I like the idea of this game, but everything, how much are they? They are, let's see. Colts D is really what I was looking at. Colts D is $3,800. It's very expensive. I doubt many people are going to get there, but they just feel like the best D to play against Heineke indoors. Yeah. They love just randomly blocking punts and scoring touchdowns.
And Heineke's a guy, like we always talk about this, where are they going to bring in Heineke and just hand it off a bunch of times, or are they just going to bring in Heineke and let him do whatever he wants? I feel like they're going to let him do whatever he wants. So we'll have to wait and see. But one thing there would, again, like I said, I know you're probably not in love with it. Most people probably aren't, but I would still take another shot on Bijan again at $6,300. It's a fair price to me. Like it's $6,300. You're getting whatever you want to say bad about him, not you, like people in general.
I mean, I'd rather play. I mean, as most people would for price. I mean, ownership aside, rather play Ty Chandler.
Oh, for sure. I think I'm talking about I'd be playing both, but because again, Ty Chandler's going to be in a bunch of lineups, especially if the Madison news breaks how we think. So again, Bijan is just a guy I'd have a little bit of interest in there, but I don't hate your call on the opposite side and just having the D there if you have the money to pay up $3,800.
Tight ends McBride and Njoku and Cole Kmet are the big three this week. Jake Ferguson getting a bit of love as well at 49, which I was surprised by.
Yeah, Kmet makes sense because the field stuff. The other two really make sense.
Because they're great.
Made the tidbits today. They're priced as like tight end. They're priced as like wide receiver 25s or 28s on the slate, and they've been like wide receiver 10s on the season and tight end 1 and 2 or something. So it's like, especially over this last period. Again, how that goes this week, I don't know. And again, you could say it every week. People said last week, you can't play Njoku again. He won't do it again. And then he did, right? So you can definitely see it happen. But McBride, they just don't put him up in the price levels of like Travis Kelce or anything like that. They're just not going to. And maybe that's right, but at $5,700, again, super owned, but got to find ways to get different.
And even to look at it, he's the best points per dollar play at $5,700 at tight end. He is the highest owned currently projected at 18%. His optimal rate is still 26%. So even though he's the highest owned, he still has the best optimal leverage of any tight end.
Yeah, and you have to play a tight end. I know there's 2 tight end lineups you can play. There's other ways to get different with them too, but the point would just be the workload. Everything he's been doing and getting is all just substantial for this position, and that's why you will take some shots within your stacks, your game stacks, whatever it might be that you build out, where you will just take some shots on some of these guys and hope that it works out. But other than that, I mean, obviously there's a reason here that he's this owned. It makes perfect sense with the workload and everything that he's been doing.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of good cheap tight ends this week. Jonnu Smith at 2,900 is the best points per dollar one, but that's not a great option. Cade Otton, who's good once every 5 games, is $3,300. Chig is 31. He does nothing every single week.
Yeah,
and it might be Tannehill starting. Who knows? Logan Thomas at 35. Tyler Conklin at 32. Like, these are your options. There's no... Like, it was more fun when McBride was $2,900. And like, hey, let's use him.
I think we'll get late steam depending on what happens with those wide receivers on Tucker Kraft. Obviously, he's looked good, decent the last couple of weeks, especially last week. And he's 3,700. It's a fair price.
And probably no Christian Watson. Probably no Jaden Reed. We don't know that yet.
Have to see on him. Yeah, you're right. But even like the fact of A.J. Dillon, I know, again, he's bad and whatever else. But
he takes up.
The more options you pull out of there, especially getting down to that end zone, red zone area, he's the guy to use down there. So it's not only the catches he can rack. I mean, he's catching 40-yard balls in some cases, opposite of the guy we were making fun of earlier, Jimmy Graham, last night with everybody back and all that, and people mad about him not getting in the game.
Not us.
One snap. You had the best bet, the under. Yeah. So either way, I'm just saying, like, that's the difference. You will see a guy like Kraft catch a 40-yard ball or something like that on top of what he can pick up beyond that at just 3,700. I think you can get away with it. And a mini with my guy earlier, Chuba Hubbard with Tucker Kraft, that's a cheap secondary stack that you could throw in there and it'd be just fine to use up a couple spots.
Well, if Reed ends up sitting, you could go Love, Kraft, Wicks. And then have all of the money in the world to do it. You play like Tyreek Seedy as a like 1v1 comeback.
Don't be afraid of it. Like that's another guy. I didn't bring it up fully earlier, but I said obviously that game, and I brought up pre-show to you about the Love factor. Again, people just aren't giving this guy credit. We look for value, and people always equate value to cheap. Like last week, Case Keenum's a great value option at just $4,000 because you don't usually get a starting quarterback for $4K. Sure, but it didn't fully work out. But if you put him with Brown, you could actually get away with it in some places because you could fit everything. But Love's numbers this season, DraftKings scoring wise, I think it's 9 games over 18.5. Of that, 6 games are over 20. And of that, I think it's 3 or 4 that are over 23. At 6,500, that's still not bad. And then if you do get a more condensed target tree, because we lose some of these other options, if Jones does pick up steam, I mean, Jones is in the optimal, why not get after it with the passing game? You can even leave Chuba Hubbard in there, but then you can go with Love, Wicks, Kraft. Like you mentioned, keep your lineup costs down and fit in all kinds of stuff. We should build that one later, just as a what if.
I'm in.
Yeah, I like that.
Are there any other Cardinal non-McBride receivers? Because it looks like Hollywood Brown's going to be out.
Go back to your guy, Michael Wilson. He ended up being the guy. He was still in the mix last week. I think he made one of the optimal lineups or something.
I thought he had 0 points last week.
Maybe it was that. Maybe it was the opposite I was thinking of. Just let me see here. Michael Wilson? What was I thinking of?
Yeah, I would guess it's probably like, is Dortch back in play? He's $4,000. Yeah, oh, he had 2 catches last week. Look at him. What a hero.
Maybe it wasn't him, but maybe it was the week. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, either way,
Michael
Wilson's at 3,700.
Yeah,
so.
0 catches on 3 targets.
That's what it was. Yeah, I just pulled it up. I forget who I was thinking of them, but yeah, either way.
Which is not great considering they were playing catch up the entire game.
Yeah.
And Hollywood Brown got hurt.
Yeah, I think you got other options in that range anyway. You talked about earlier, but like Parker Washington could become a thing at 3,800. So
if you trust Beathard enough.
Yeah, depends. Maybe he plays with them a little bit more too, right? You could have a bit of a connection there that way.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. So defenses, finally, before we get into the optimal points per dollar, Jets D is the best. They're coming in at 11% ownership. Bucks D, 14% ownership. That's a tough spot. I know that they're 3-point favorites now, and Beathard might be playing quarterback. They don't really generate a ton of pressure on the quarterback. Like, they just seem to be in a spot where it's like, oh, they're playing a backup quarterback, and maybe that does work out, but their defense isn't very good anyway. They don't generate a lot of turnovers. It seems like an easy fade at 2,600.
It typically is, right? You could go, or you go underweight, whatever you want to do. But the point would be, like, again, if they let him sling it around, they can just get lucky without pressure. Like, you can just obviously just pick it. Right?
I would rather, like, at that $2,600 range, and there's very few cheap defenses this week. I would rather play the Vikings D at $2,500 and just hope they rattle Goff, and Goff has one of those bad games, or Cardinals or Bears D at 27 and 28.
What's the Bears D?
Bears D is $2,800.
Yeah, I'd be good with a few options there. The one that you said for sure was who was the first one you said? No, you didn't say
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Sorry. Yeah, that one was fine. That could be another way to get unique with Chandler. I was going to bring that up earlier because, again, it's Goff. I know it's, still in a dome, which is usually what the case is. I think there's a stat now, like Goff doesn't have to play another game outside for the rest of the season or something just because his home and then obviously places that he's going. But a couple other options that fell in there. Miami. If you don't end up on anything in that game, it's fine by me, as well as Arizona on the opposite side of Chicago. You're really more with the Arizona side leveraging up. If you're not on Fields, Kmet, anything to go with that game, you would get leverage on the field that way because we know that Fields and those spots are going to be a little bit more owned than most spots. So it'd be a way to get leverage that way.
One of the interesting notes here, Miami, 9% projected ownership. Dallas at 3,000, 3% projected ownership. I can see Dallas smashing. Like, I think that Miami wins the game, but I'm wrong all the time. Like, it's very close. There's a lot of outcomes here. I mean, Dallas's D could dominate this offensive line of Miami. And, like, once you get Tua rattled, he gets rattled.
Yeah, and there was some thought process to it that obviously last week was a look ahead for Dallas, which caused them to get crushed.
That seems kind of odd. Why would they be looking past the Bills to Miami?
Yeah, that's just what people said. I just thought that was kind of interesting because they did get absolutely smashed last week, and now they can come out and have a big game here. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and if you can find the money for the Colts, I really like the Colts, but they are the second most expensive defense on the slate.
Trying to see if there's anybody else up top. Like, I don't see. I guess no one's going to play any of these guys up here, but like Green Bay is $3,900.
Yeah, like the Commanders are mispriced at $3,700.
Yeah, Washington. Detroit.
I think it's Chicago. I mean, the Jets D is the best play. I think just scanning everything, price, matchup, what they do well versus their opponent. It's outdoors. They're home favorites. Makes a ton of sense. After that, it would probably be the Bears for me.
I think I kind of like two of the calls you had here, Dallas and Chicago. Dallas, $100 less. I like that more than the opposite side of just landing on Miami because you're not playing Pollard. I get it from that angle, but I do think just in general, like say Dallas could be a spot that shows up and rattle Tua, like you just mentioned. And then the Chicago's, and that's also $100 less than the Jets, why I bring that up, and as did you. But Chicago on the other side at 2,800, McBride, if he's going to be like 20 to 25%, that's a lot of lineups that he's in. Kyler can also take heat, and he's in Chicago. It's not in Arizona, so. Speaking of that, like that could be a spot as well. I like that one that you brought up there, 2,800.
And McBride can get there even if Chicago's D gets there.
They can both hit too. Yeah, I just think it's another way that just not a lot of people will naturally. You'll have a giant chunk of the field, 20% or so, that probably aren't putting their tight end against their defense. You already find at least a leg up on 1/5 of the field with that. But I actually think they're popping and they're not getting the ownership at 2,800.
Let's go to the optimal lineup provided by runthesims.com. Code Mayo at runthesims.com will get you 10% off all of the tools. If you want the Sims, if you want the optimization, the lineup builder, code Mayo. If you just want the prop sniper, which you could have won your entire year's worth on Jimmy Graham unders last night. The way that I wrote it up, because I saw like it's the Sims spit it out. It was like a 56% winner.
Yeah.
But it was paying plus 160. It was like basically you're getting plus 160 on a coin flip. Who wouldn't take that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And I did describe it as it will embarrass you. If it doesn't hit, it will embarrass you in the worst way possible because his one catch will be for a touchdown and you'll feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
Fortunately, he played one snap and hit his under.
That was what I was saying. Like that's the one spot where you almost kind of know exactly how this is going to go. It's either not going to happen, which you're hoping with the plus 160 coin flip, or he's going to get the touchdown, which I know you could still lose this, but I said it was almost a spot you could have bet the anytime touchdown and you would have came out with positive money either way because that's how you expect to get crushed by a guy like Jimmy Graham. But yeah, in general, nice to still see that get the job done, and a lot of people win a lot of money.
Yeah, jump in the Listeners League as well. So here's the opto. Justin Fields is the quarterback. Chuba Hubbard and Aaron Jones going against each other are the running backs. Adam Thielen, Garrett Wilson, Calvin Ridley, the wide receivers. Double tight end with Pitts and McBride. And then Jets D. This lineup is terrible.
It's setting up, though.
We can.
It's setting up for the Mayo Bryce Young special here. We got Chuba Hubbard. We got Adam Thielen. We're taking things back now early in the season.
Although Bryce Young was the quarterback of my highest win lineup of the season, it was only because he scored 12 DraftKings points in that game. It's just he allowed you to unlock the rest of the game, which went off, and no other quarterbacks on that slate. I think the highest scoring quarterback had 18 points, and that's why you were able to get away with it.
That was his second best game of the season, by the way. He had one game at 20, and then it looks like the rest were all... Oh, he had a 14, I guess, in there, but then 12 or worse.
The bet is Jordan Love under rushing yards. No quarterbacks run against Carolina. None.
Okay.
I don't just with the way that their defense is configured, they do a very good job at containing quarterbacks.
Yeah, we're going to get to him later. He's going to do it through the air.
Love?
Yeah, we can still bet the under and get there through the air.
Do you want to change this into a Fields lineup? Like, how do you want to mess around with this?
Well, it's a Fields lineup already.
I know, but
oh, you mean like
but
go
there's
with
no
a stack.
other.
Yeah, I got you.
There's no other Bears in this lineup, and only McBride on the other side.
People aren't even. Oh yeah, they are definitely. How much is more? 6,900.
Yeah.
You need 1,000 there.
Did you just roll it with Kmet, double tight end, Kmet McBride?
I was thinking of that first off. Like you can just get to your 2,700 range D. You can almost get to your cheap D, right? Because it's 4,400, I think.
Yeah, so you can get drop down Jets to Vikings if you wanted to. I think the easy move here is just drop Aaron Jones and call him Ty Chandler. And then you have Vikings D with Chandler in this lineup. Now you have $1,000 left over that we can play with.
Oh, you just move Thielen up to DJ Moore.
Does that work?
Maybe. Did you get Kmet in there first? I can't.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. So
that actually exactly works out with just those little pieces moved.
And it seems like it's way better anyway. Like I would actually still at least want to. I know that Fields can get through his legs. I understand it. I'm saying my point is I'd still rather find a way. And I think some people don't do this all the time. Like, oh, I'll just put him with one guy, and you don't need to double stack him. You don't. But if he actually does ceiling out here and really want to break the slate or something, I'd like to see it be through a couple of guys, and you can do it that way. So, how much were the Vikings?
2,500.
Oh, wow, it is true. I thought they were 27, so I was like, maybe I messed it up. But, yeah, we're good. This is the lineup.
Well, this lineup, I feel like, is at least higher upside than the optimal that was spit out. I still don't like it.
Which was weird, too, that the again, it's just the way it shakes out sometimes, but the optimal didn't have Chandler when, like you said, he's obviously the guy that you would expect to see in there. Him and McBride were the first two I would think would go into most optimals this week, assuming that we get the Madison news.
Yeah, the other thing you can do here, if you take Ridley down to Parker Washington,
okay,
at 38, you can change Hubbard into any running back that you want, actually.
So Hubbard can go to...
You can turn him into Rashad White.
And then you can just get your defense back.
And then you have Rashad White and Parker Washington going against each other. And then if you really wanted to change it around, at $5,800, you can get up to 66 at receiver. So you could get Amari Cooper in there, who I really do like this week.
So who are you swapping out to get Cooper? Moore or Wilson?
Wilson,
okay. So let me get Cooper in there. See how this one projects out for us.
Probably terribly.
Yeah, it was the other one actually on projections pretty much matched the optimal. What you flipped it to was right there still, because obviously Chandler has a pretty good projection right now too. So clarify with me who the other running back is with Chandler.
Rashad White.
Still have White. Okay, there we moved to White. Sorry. And
I mean you can drop him down to Jonathan Taylor if you wanted to.
Do you have $200 left over right now?
I do.
Yeah, and this projects almost the same as well.
I think I like this configuration a little bit better.
The other thing I just realized is we also had the run back with McBride in this game. So you already have the triple stack.
Yeah, we have the triple with the run back, and now we have White and Parker Washington going against each other as well.
And you have Chandler in the D. Mm-hmm. And then you just land on Amari Cooper. 64. Is there anyone else? No, there's not much else that I even like anyway, so it's kind of interesting. Yeah, don't hate that. You could get what happens if you just swap Amari Cooper and Washington back to the Ridley spot for a minute? Who's 4,100? Anybody?
At receiver?
Yeah, or anybody in that range?
41.
Full-on game stack with Greg Dortch.
Yeah, you have Alec Pierce pops up. Robert Woods.
Not much there that I like. Nah.
Jamison Williams, Michael Wilson, Mingo.
How high are you on Fields at all, if at all?
I'm not. Really.
Okay. No, I know we're just doing the optimal. I was just curious beyond that if you actually did have, because you just said a second ago that you're like, I actually don't really like that. It's good, but it's not a lineup that you love because it's not what you want this week. So let's start with that. Like, where do you want to roll out? You want to do the Flacco ones first?
Of course I want to do the Flacco ones first.
All right, let's do Flacco.
Who wouldn't want to do a Flacco one first?
Well, I will say this, too. Obviously, this is the other part of it that's the obvious for most and, makes perfect sense. But just if the Cooper side of things, I don't see Cooper as a guy like I mentioned earlier with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like Amon-Ra, to me,
if Cooper gets there, Flacco gets there.
Flacco's there. So if you have Cooper having a big game, then it makes perfect sense because it's going to be like a 2-touchdown, 100-yard game. That's going to be huge for Flacco. And people say that's the same. It's not. Like literally, like I say, Amon-Ra can just rack up those 10-yard catches, get 11 or 12 of them, get the bonus, and get a touchdown or not, but on a 9-game slate, still be utilized where you need them, and you're not paying up at quarterback for Goff here. So that would be the angle of that one versus this one. You want Flacco with Cooper.
Flacco, Cooper, Njoku, Noah Brown.
Okay.
Don't know yet whether or not Nico is going to play. He's limited in practice with this calf injury. Obviously, Stroud is out. and Collins is still a bunch of money, if I'm going to take a Texan, I do feel like Noah Brown, what he can do after the catch.
And what just happened?
Yeah, the easier throws. Obviously, Keenum likes him.
The trust that just happened. I mean, it's not even as much as just chasing. It technically is, yes. But at the same time, the price only went up $200. The quarterback's staying the same, and they just had some stuff happen. He at least should try and get him the ball. Whatever ends up happening, we won't know. But I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. And I don't even see I don't think people are chasing a Noah Brown play here, or like the fact that he had a good game last game. It looks like he's really low owned as of right now.
And he's only $5,200.
Only went up $200. I mean, had a good game.
So I can mess around with that. The other one, he had 11 targets. Now, obviously, in that game, there was no Nico Collins. Dalton Schultz ended up with 5 in that game as well, 4 for 58. So I guess he would be the other option. The only other one I could think about, I wouldn't think about it this week because Stroud's not playing, but for the future, Xavier Hutchinson, they do seem to want to get involved. Mm-hmm. Like he only
tried him last week.
But it's like he had no catches. He had 3 targets. He had but they got him involved like with an end around. It seems like they want him to take over the Tank Dell role. He's just not that good.
Or we just don't know yet. But it's true. It's like we don't. They did actually try some stuff. To your point though, and that's why it was interesting. And I think he still is the stone minimum. So it's like you can go to him if you need the savings off of a lineup that you're building like this.
I think that if you're building this type of lineup, you probably don't need the savings because you don't have any the highest end player that you have in your lineup is Amari Cooper.
How much is Elijah Moore this week? He is 4,200. I was just thinking out loud, but or in my head, but just say it out loud, is that if another angle, we're going to do this one, but like if you did go to Schultz opposite of Njoku in that spot, and then instead of Noah Brown, used Elijah Moore and tried to get the double passing stack through wide receivers with Flacco, and then use the tight end on the other side, and then you still use up a tight end position at a bad spot this week for a game stack that makes sense. And we've definitely seen Elijah Moore get some action with Flacco as well.
Yeah, less so since Cooper's been healthy.
Yeah. So I like the setup. Let's start here. What running backs do you want to roll in?
I don't know. Can we make Tyreek work here? How do you feel about Tyreek this week? Good or bad or
bad.
Indifferent?
Probably indifferent, but like not super high on him. Like people say, well, he's got to come in at 10% owned. It's the perfect spot.
It kind of is.
Yeah, it would make sense. And if you can't get to that game, I think, like you said, if you can get to it, it's fine. Also, have to remember there's 2 factors. One is, say it on one side of the coin is he's almost 10K. If he gets you a 78-yard touchdown, we've done this game already. He needs that to make his price work. So you better hope he has that early and often setup. But on the other end of it, the flip side of the coin is that it's only a 9-game slate. So maybe the 30 to 35, like maybe that's enough, even though he is almost 10K. So, you see a lot of times these high-priced wide receivers don't ending up on optimals or winning lineups because they need to do a lot more than what you think they need to do.
Let's throw Bears D into play at $2,800.
Like that.
So that leaves us a flex, another receiver spot, and 2 running back slots, and we have $6,200 left.
How high are you on Ty Chandler, though? Like, this should be like a plug, I think, but it's up to you.
Yeah. I'm in on Ty Chandler. So let's plug him in.
Okay.
I mean, and maybe your casual DraftKings user will not play as much Ty Chandler, because when you go to his name, it does say that the Lions have given up the fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs, which is true, although the run defense isn't all that great.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I'm good with that. And this is another way to get action in this game. And if people are going to play Mullins and Jefferson, it's like they will be playing them with Chandler for sure. But it's like that's what I'm saying. If you're just looking for a piece within it, I feel more comfortable just rolling him in there.
What about Addison as the Viking? Like not with Chandler, but just in general. Yeah. Like Addison was the one who went off. Obviously, Mullins likes him enough. He's now back to being completely wide open now that Justin Jefferson is back.
Yep. Definitely fine. Again, we did Debo, no way he can do it again. Did it again. Njoku, no way he can do it again. Did it again. Like it happens.
So now I don't know what to do.
6,400 with 3 spots left, right?
Yes.
Is that what you got? So yeah, I think this is where, depending on what you like for that other running back spot, you could build in some secondaries. Do you want a Detroit piece opposite of Chandler? Do you want to put something else in there from these other games? Do you want the double tight end with McBride? Where do you feel best about going next?
I like Michael Pittman.
Okay.
If he plays.
So let's do him.
I think it's a great spot, and this is a way that you can use Bijan if you wanted to. At 63, then you have $5,500 for a flex. Who's a flex at 55? Down, Singletary, Reed, Ford, Ingram. Ugh. Now we're into like a dead zone, unfortunately.
Yeah, the question is if you want I think what I would do is actually go Chuba Hubbard and your Minnesota defense here, and just leave the $100.
I think I just like Bears D better.
I do, but again, I don't care about overall. I care about lineup construction. So it's like I'm saying for this lineup, that's what, again, I think that's another just key takeaway is that people do this and they get hung up on something. It is what you like better, yes. And when you have a single entry, it's your only money. And I understand that concept and take it. I want you to play who you want to play. I'm obviously looking at it like, man, does it make sense? And what do I like better? I like this little Bijan Pittman stack. I have a 3-1 the other way. I don't mind getting a piece of that Green Bay Carolina game in Hubbard. And he literally was in the optimal before. And I liked your take on both Chicago and the Minnesota D. So if I'm just going to land there, why not? And just roll it. So I think for this lineup, I'm okay. It works out to 3 points off your original optimal. It's kind of a nice lineup.
We could go with Aaron Jones as the other running back.
So who are we taking? So I'll take out Hubbard. I'll take out Minnesota D. Do you want me to take Bijan out? Or leave
Yeah, I have Bijan. I just replaced Bijan with Aaron Jones. That leaves us 5,400 if we can start now reverse engineering this. Maybe we don't need Pittman. Maybe Pittman's too expensive. Or we just go more expensive. And with Chandler, we put in Amon-Ra and then see what we have left.
So is there anyone at 5,400?
No.
Not really.
If we go to 4,600, Algier, Schultz.
I think you could just take out your Pittman play at this point, though, and just see what you want instead.
I did. I took out Pittman and I put in Amon-Ra, but now we're down to 46, and that's not great either.
Yeah, that one stings. What is, let's see again here, 46? Nobody, but...
You know what we could do?
Even at 46.
You could put in Ridley as your wide receiver.
Yeah, don't hate that.
And then as your flex, you have 6,500. You can actually get back to Bijan if you wanted to. Or you could play Laporta as a double tight end with Ty Chandler.
Yeah, I like that too, actually.
But Bijan is there. Godwin is there for the other side of the Ridley game if you wanted it. Laporta. I think I like Laporta the best of those guys and just hope for the touchdown upside.
And the fact that it's, again, you're doing a double tight end that's not with the common side of it because McBride is the common tight end that's going to be used in double tight end. You actually have the defense against there, so it's like a double spot that way, kind of in a mini. And you have the Chandler versus Laporta setup as well, which is a good total game to get a couple pieces of. It's a 47 points indoors. Like I think that's more than fine. And yeah, this setup is pretty good. I don't mind this lineup.
No Dolphins, no Cowboys.
I think that's going to be common. We can go there and see what we can do to take advantage of that. But besides like the Pollard play, like I said, that's why I think there's some extra going to Pollard here as well, is because people are like, that's the way I can just get a piece of that game because they can't get there many other ways.
Okay, let's rebuild this lineup and we go back to our original core here. Flacco, Chandler, Cooper, Noah Brown, Njoku, Bears D. Keep those ones in. What if we play Mostert?
All right, let's see here. Mostert.
And then in the flex, we can have, I remember the cheapest running back that I like is Antonio Gibson. We can use Antonio Gibson. Then we have $6,700 for a receiver. So you have like DK Metcalf against, that's actually pretty nice. DK against Tennessee.
Yep. Projects about the same as what we just had. So that one's fine.
That's sort of like a one-off. You just take DK that he just shoots all over them.
Again, this doesn't help us with the case of the Raheem Mostert stuff and getting a piece of that game, but you can also just flip it from DK Mostert to Ridley Rashad White, and that's pretty nice. And you could
that's actually two guys playing each other.
Yep, and you could also get up to no, you wouldn't want that. So yeah, that's fine. You could get up to your what was your other defense called that I liked? Dallas versus Miami, which is another way that actually, again, I like that because we just took Mostert out because we couldn't get a piece of that game. And you said, like, if Tua gets rattled, what if Dallas D does just show up? That gets you that as well. And then you have Gibson against the Jets D. So you kind of got a Gibson Dallas where most people would have a Jets something else. So like that one as well. That actually sets up nice on paper.
Any other way that you want to switch up this Flacco one, or do you think we're good with Flacco?
I think you made again, you said it, but I think it's kind of true, is the Elijah Moore thing was a product of no Cooper. As much as I know people loved it from the Jets days and the air yards and all that stuff of Flacco and him playing together, that was the only other thing I could think of, but I also don't know how much I really love Schultz. It's just what I do like, and when talking through it, is like when you find a spot, we know tight end is pretty bad this week, probably best to stick to the guys we know are good, but then the secondary way of doing that would be to find guys that fit game stacks, and in this case, you could have flipped Njoku to Schultz, pick up some money and move up some of these other plays or move them around other ways. But I'm fine with just moving off it. We got some good lineups out of that one.
Jordan Love.
I'm really excited to do this one.
Jordan Love, Kraft, Wicks.
Yeah. And Hubbard, I think. Even let's just try our original Chandler Hubbard.
Hubbard, Chandler. We're going to have so much money.
Yeah, well, we might be able to try your thing now. That's what we said. So.
Let's go with Bears D. Can we fit Tyreek and Lamb? Let's see. We have $2,600 for a flex if we do that.
Okay, so let's just be patient. Let's see what we got here. Wicks, my thing is running slow, but we got Kraft going in. You got Chicago D in there right now?
Yeah. So we'd have to drop Chicago D down to...
go to Minnesota just for now, even just to see.
Yeah, Minnesota. Now we're at 29. You can play Jonnu as your flex, and it works.
Man. It's because we want those two. That's the thing.
Yeah, I don't think... If there's a guy to play... Because I don't know if Ramsey's going to end up being on Lamb, which would actually, if Ramsey is on Lamb, then Brennan Cooks is like the play.
So what happens if you just go Tyreek Cooks?
Well, then you don't need to use Jonnu Smith.
7,200. I thought we had a guy there.
You know what? Cooks at 49 is actually an answer to a lot of those questions that we were just building. I didn't realize he was only $4,900.
You can get Jonathan Taylor in now.
Okay, well, I don't hate this lineup as much now.
If you're getting Tyreek, Cooks, and Jonathan Taylor mixed into that all, that's not too bad. Sounds better than Tyreek, Lamb, Jonnu Smith.
It does.
So I'm okay with it. We just need Cooks to come through. Is there any situation this week? I guess this is my thing, is Jefferson can do a little bit of the Amon-Ra thing, right? Jefferson can get you the 12 catches, 180, and not get in, and kind of does still help Mullins because he racks up all those yards at a cheap price. But if he's not getting a lot of the touchdowns, could you see taking Chandler out of this, getting like Mostert put in there, or getting Mostert put in, yes.
And turning Hill into Jefferson?
And turning Hill into Jefferson and trying to play it that way. Like,
well, let's see. I'm going to enter that one.
Yeah, enter that one.
Then we'll reload.
I want to take Minnesota. I guess I'm going to try this, but yeah. What did I say? You like Mostert better than Pollard, right?
Yes.
I was just saying we can.
So we take, who is it out? We take Hill out and turn him into Jefferson, turn Chandler into Mostert.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if you can make your original setup work here, but now we're down to like.
It's okay. We can rejig this a little bit. You can turn. We just take out Jonathan Taylor and turn Jonathan Taylor into. I mean, we don't have any Lions going. We have Vikings D in, but if we drop it to. Hell, I don't know. DK Metcalf.
Who was the guy at 6,700 we liked earlier?
It was DK.
Oh, DK, yeah. Pollard's right there. Is there somebody else at 73? Mostert. Yeah. The question is if you could go Pollard, but we already have Cooks. Yeah, I don't see it as much. I guess the other angle, the only other thing I could think of is what if you went instead of Cooks, Mostert, and played Wicks, Jefferson, Amon-Ra. And did like the slightly less expensive Tyreek Lamb, get the Amon-Ra Jefferson into your lineup as the mini
What if
stack.
you played like Jefferson Gibbs?
Yeah, that's possible too.
We'd have to lose Vikings D, but...
You go to Chicago, can we get to it?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think that works. Bears D... Yeah, now we have exactly $6,700 left. We'd have to save money somewhere else.
Yeah, we might be more stuck in this one than we think.
Maybe just get rid of Chuba Hubbard and go to Gibson. And then you can afford it. You can back up to 72. You can have Jonathan Taylor if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And you have Gibbs as your flex.
You don't even need a run back in this spot. So
that's the whole thing with this Green Bay onslaught. Like, do you really need a Panther?
Oh, you don't? No, I was thinking like we're going off like the optimal from earlier, so it was a way to do it. But yeah, this is obviously projects poorly, but I think that's another way to do it there where you're still getting a piece, and instead of Chandler, you've got Jefferson in there. So it's, again, Jefferson will be popular as well. So
we could just use Jonathan Taylor as well in this lineup if we wanted to.
That's what I went to what you said. I went to Gibson, Jonathan Taylor, Mostert, and then that kept us with Cooks, Mostert. It got us Jefferson, who's still popular, but no Chandler. Get in your guy Gibson, like you said, and then you get to still get the Chicago D in this spot as well. And then your stack is Love, Wicks, Kraft. I don't think it's the worst. It's just, again, it's not going to project good because of some of these plays. And again, we'll see. It'll project better if those wide receivers are out for Green Bay.
Is there? Yeah, I mean, I would wait to see with the Jaden Reed news whether or not you want to play Wicks, but if he is out, then yeah. That's probably the move. Do you want to build another Love lineup, or do you want to try to bounce around somewhere else?
So I'd like to try the Minshew with your Pittman call.
Yeah, let's do that.
I think that's a good one too. Just see it here because Minshew is 5,900.
So Minshew with Pittman. Do we play Jonathan Taylor with him as well, or no, or just those
I think
two?
let's go off it for now. What has Downs even been doing? He's 5,500 still, but like I feel like he hasn't come through ever.
See, he was 3 for 19, 3 for 32, 5 for 14. Those are his past three.
Might just have to leave it at this. Who is the Atlanta guy that you want to play in here, though?
London?
I think it's like Bijan or a tight end.
The tight end would work.
You want to play your Jonnu play?
I mean,
Again, I will say, like I keep saying this, but it's true. On the slate where we know who the good tight ends are, and we know they're going to be owned for a reason, if you're not on them or not doing a double tight end lineup, I would rather do something like this, and that's where I would take my shot on Jonnu to at least put him in something where he makes sense, right? Just fill out the spot. Then build up elsewhere.
I want to see how teams...
Pitts was also in the optimal, by the way, too, just a note. But
Yeah, and it was a double tight end.
yeah.
But I do want to see who Heineke was looking at when he was playing. He played against the Cardinals, right? Yeah, that's right. So let's go to box score. Taylor Heineke. Yeah, he came into that game. So, and we'll go to his game log. What games have you played this year? So he's played 3 games. He scored 23, 28, and 23 in his 3 losses. At least that's encouraging that they're getting above 20 points in these games.
These guys just didn't play a lot of snaps either. That's crazy. Like, Jonnu barely played.
So it was, I mean, in the first one that came in, it was Drake London. So let's not even look at that one because he only played half the game. So in the second game, Heineke, we had Jonnu Smith, 5 for 100 and a touchdown on 6 targets. Kadarrell Hodge, 6 targets. There was no Drake London in that game. Pitts had 5 targets in a catch-up spot where they lost to the Vikings. In the other game with Heineke, it was Heineke and then Ritter ended up coming in. It was Kadarrell Hodge again, then Drake London had 7 targets. So when in doubt, it's Bijan or London because those are the 2 game-breaking guys.
I think I'll go Bijan then.
Okay.
I don't like London this week, so I'll go Bijan. Let's hope that Bijan does something, sets it up for Minshew needing to come back, and then Pittman has just been a monster. Mind you, I mean, what is the situation on Pittman? I thought he died last week, but he did not. That hit he took was insane. I think the guy's he got
Full participant.
banned for the season, but he was full practice yesterday. That's right.
Yeah.
You just reminded me of that. So yeah, we're
So
good.
so he could still be out, but right now it's looking like he's going to play.
All right.
So Minshew, Pittman, Bijan, $5,000 left per player.
Let's put our Chicago D Ty Chandler.
Okay.
And then if we need the money for Minnesota, we could always go down to it. But I like your Chicago D call here. I do.
So Chicago D, Ty Chandler. So
Okay.
2 receivers, a tight end, and a flex.
And then can we go? Because what do we? I guess tight end is the question now. What are we gonna do at tight end? Because if we go Laporta,
McBride.
Yeah.
I don't care about Chicago. Like I said, he can.
yeah, it
get
doesn't matter. He racks them up through the anyway. And if we need $300, we might change it down anywhere. If I see 2v2s, okay.
So we're at 54. Is this a spot to put in either Wicks or Parker Washington to save a bunch of money and bump us back up to 62?
Depends on what what's the, like, if you're going to put another secondary stack in here, I would look at that first and then see if there's one that you like that lands us on that. Like the example would be,
We could do Parker. Those 2 guys play on the same team. That probably doesn't work.
well, let's say if you liked the Calvin Ridley.
I was going to say Parker Washington, Rashad White, and then put in Noah Brown.
That could work.
But it doesn't fit. We're $100 short. So we can move Bears down to whoever.
Well, you move him to Minnesota like you had before because we
Yeah.
still have Chandler in there. So who was it? Was it Parker Washington and Rashad White?
Yeah.
White's just been going off too. White.
Every week. Just incredible game log on this guy. 22, 24, 20, 16, 18, 18, 28, 18, 16.
And who was the other guy you put in a wide receiver with Pittman and Washington?
Noah Brown.
Oh, Noah Brown, because we need the $100.
Yeah.
So we do that. Noah Brown, and then that leaves us 2,700, which we liked Minnesota at 25. And yeah, that's only 3.5 points off your original optimal too.
So the other way you can do this, you could take Noah Brown out and play Brendan Cooks instead. And then you have $500 left. You could get up to whatever the hell you wanted to.
Get to your Dallas D again.
Do you want to play Dallas D with Cooks?
It's fine. It doesn't matter to me. Like that's just again another piece to get action against Miami there. But you could also just stay at your Chicago, and then we got $200 to find. I thought there was a wide receiver at 4K we had earlier.
Wide receiver at 4K?
No, maybe we didn't. I think it was actually Pitts at tight end. That was 4K.
Who would work in this lineup? Theoretically.
Yeah, you'd get to McLaurin or Lockett or...
That doesn't seem worth it.
No, it's not ideal. Yeah.
So that's a way to play this Minshew one.
These Minshew lineups are projecting okay, though, which is nice to see. And you're still getting guys like Chandler, Bijan, Pittman. Like there's some, 25 to 30 point possibilities here. Yeah, you're taking a shot on a guy like Parker Washington, but you also still have McBride and White and kind of more of a balanced build, really, for the week. And it just seems like a lot will end up that way. But do you want to try and build like a Dallas-Miami stack?
I do want to build a Dallas-Miami stack.
Okay. What side?
Dak.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Dak with Lamb and Cooks.
Dak.
And I think that the option is either Waddle or Mostert coming back, or A-Chain.
I think we'll just stick with Mostert if we can't get Tyreek. Can we get Tyreek?
I mean, we could try it. The rest of your lineup is going to be god-awful.
Let's go with your Gibson, $5,200.
Are you putting in Hill?
Trying.
Okay. So Tyreek.
Gibson 52. Chandler.
Gibson.
It's cheap.
Chandler.
This is like impossible.
Oh my God, we're down to $2,500 per player. I think this is literally impossible.
So I think though, okay, but like we're trying to find out how to get to Tyreek, aren't we?
Are we?
I think so. Like I think we got to pull Lamb and still leave Gibson, Chandler, Minnesota D, and now you have a wide receiver, a tight end, and a flex, and almost 5K. By the way, too, because we said this earlier, we used this example for Cooper. Cooks would be helpful in this. I mean, obviously, you need to still do a lot to get to that $7,900 price tag for Dak, but you got to think if Cooks has a 2-touchdown day, obviously Dak's doing pretty good for $7,900. If Tyreek's coming the other way,
so do you think that we should use Jake Ferguson, or do we just go Dak, Cooks, Hill?
Ooh, that's actually another. I like that. Let's use that. $4,900. You still have $4,700 left. What if we just plug in your guy Parker Washington you mentioned earlier? Leaves us $5,600. Just spitballing here, but just to see it. Oh man, it's $100 off McBride. Was there someone at $3,700 instead of Parker Washington?
Let's see.
How much was Wicks?
Wicks was more. Oh. Michael Wilson is $3,700.
No, we talked to that guy.
Mingo is $36. Your guy.
Ooh, Mingo McBride.
Oh my God.
What else do you like here? Then I do like the Ferguson call of bringing him in because we're saying no Lamb, and we want Dak to have something else happen. You're getting it through Cooks, Ferguson. It still gets us Hill. You can't quite get to it, but you've got Chandler in the D makes sense. Gibson, I like your call the other way.
If we use Parker Washington, you're in this range. Like I know that we want to get to McBride, but if we could use Njoku, we could use Noah Brown, we could use Drake London. Like all these guys are there.
Singletary?
No, I don't like Singletary. Singletary doesn't fit for me.
I've got $5,600 left.
I have $5,300. Oh, you have Vikings DN. That's why.
Yes.
I had Bears DN.
Yeah, we need the money. So, Jerome Ford, break the slate on Joe Flacco lovers. That could be something. But no, I don't see. I guess that's the angle here is what you can do then is let's go Njoku to get a piece of the game you already like. Just I don't mind it for this build, and you like Chicago D.
Yeah, and then we get back up to Chicago D.
And that's perfect. And projects 5 points off the original optimal. But man, Dak, Cooks, Ferguson, double tight end, Tyreek on the other side. You still get this is all the plays you like. This is the Mayo lineup right here. It's a lot of them, I guess. Not all of them because you like different quarterback stuff. But I'm saying you get a piece of your Flacco love. You found a way to get Tyreek in. You mentioned Parker Washington, Gibson, Chicago D. Like you got a lot of the plays you like in here.
So let's try it again the other way. We'll take Tyreek out and play Mostert.
So do you want to take Njoku out? And
we'll take Njoku, Ferguson, Tyreek, and keep it like it is right now.
So what do you have right now? I got Dak, Gibson, Chandler, Cooks, Chicago D.
Yeah.
Do you want to try and get Lamb in with Mostert?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Lamb with Mostert and Cooks with Dak.
All right, let's see.
And then you have Chandler, Gibson. I have Parker Washington, and that leaves you $3,300 for a tight end.
Man, this is what we got to think about then. So Lamb is $9,200.
What if we use Kraft? Bears D down to Panthers D is the only one left.
So if you use Kraft, you have 30.
We'd have to
How
say
much is Mingo?
Mingo's 37, I think.
Oh, man. I think
36.
I found it.
So you use Mingo instead of...
Mingo, Kraft, Minnesota D. It works.
Now, which one do you like any of those?
I like that lineup.
Do you like this one better than the Tyreek one we just built?
Yeah, I do. I think so. I don't mind this Green Bay, Carolina cheap pieces. I mentioned earlier with Hubbard, but you could do it with Mingo. I just like the idea of this. And again, Kraft could get better as the week goes on, as being like a legit guy that has the chance to go with those other guys based on multiple wide receivers and a running back being down. We'll have to see how it goes. But I like Chandler with Minnesota D. I like the Lamb, Cooks, Dak side of things with Mostert on the other end and a 50-point total. And then you get Kraft, Mingo, and your guy Antonio Gibson, who, if you don't like Breece Hall and you want to go against the Jets deal, you can play them both together. It's fine. But just saying, I actually don't hate that call. So I like this lineup. It projects 1 point better.
You know what? You know how I like this a little bit better?
What else?
Because, I mean, Gibson is more there for if you need the salary savings at wide receiver, right?
Okay.
Or at running back. But we can just move Mostert into the running back spot, and we can use Noah Brown in the flex instead of Gibson, who I actually objectively like better. You could also use Njoku as your flex if you wanted to. Njoku or Noah Brown, because you have $5,300 left.
The Njoku one projects pretty well.
So we throw Njoku in, play double tight end with Kraft and Njoku. But you could also do that with Gibson. You could do that with Brown. You could do it with Romeo Doubs, which you probably wouldn't want to do because you have Tucker Kraft already.
But Brown on the opposite side there, yeah, that could work as well. Yeah.
I think I like this more than the Gibson lineup. Like, I mean, the move with Gibson is almost like what you say all the time. Like, just go to his ladder in terms of player props and bet him over 6 receptions or something.
Yeah, definitely fine with that, too. I always say stuff like that for certain guys, and this would be a spot that it would work. So Mostert in there to move the needle, get things rolling for Dak and his passing guys with Cooks and Lamb. And then you have a cheap secondary stack, another one with Minnesota and Chandler, and then you land on Njoku definitely pops the best, and you still get a piece of Flacco indoors, guy that's just been racking up the catches. Not really afraid of him by himself like that if you're doing it in a lineup like this. It's just a really good way to get different with it.
All right. So everyone play in the DraftKings Listeners League for the Sunday slate. I do want to take a look at this Monday slate, Christmas Day Slate, and see what we're rolling. Do you want me to run the optimal for this?
Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to go load it up on my side here. It's the 3-gamer for Monday. We've got...
And there's a Listeners League for this one as well, so I highly encourage you to go fill that right now. Let's go in. Christian McCaffrey's in this one. It's Hurts and DeAndre Swift.
Okay, Hurts. Oh, just 1 second.
DeAndre
Hurts.
Swift and McCaffrey.
Swift, McCaffrey. Surprise, surprise.
With
okay.
Rashid. Oh, my God. Tony.
Tony. Rice.
And Slayton, Kelsey, Wendell.
I was like, how does Wendell not get in there over Slayton? Oh, they get them both. Don't you worry. And then the defense is Vegas?
It is Las Vegas.
Has to be, yeah.
So that's what the optimal is showing us for the Christmas Day slate.
I mean, it's literally
like the worst lineup. It's just you're just picking names out of a hat. Like here are like the 3 best guys and everyone else who makes the lineup work.
Yeah, like you can just change this in 2 seconds and swap the Vegas D to the Ravens and Hurts to Mahomes. And never Mahomes is for the main slates. On these small slates like this, especially where this...
Well, if you have Rice, Tony, and Kelsey in this lineup, it only makes sense to play Mahomes.
And then you still have Swift, who hopefully can finally get in the box and leverage. I have no clue how Philadelphia stops at the 1 literally every time. Like Swift last week, 9 yards to the 1. And then it's Hurts getting it in. But this would at least make a little bit more sense. You've got 2 of the guys that just catch passes opposite of Swift. You got the 4-man stack, no run back. You got McCaffrey against the defense in this one, but who cares? Because... McCaffrey can break any slate, anything, doesn't matter. So,
could you envision playing this slate and not playing McCaffrey?
I will be doing that, but because I'm not going to lock him in. But anything can happen. But it's tough. Yeah, 9,500 on a short slate. The guys could score 25 and be all you need. So 20 be all. You just never know how it's going to shake out. And running back is not too strong or not too known in this spot. So I think he's going to be 80% here, something like that.
Let's take a look at the running backs on this slate. So if we say no McCaffrey, then you're completely wide open with what you want to do. Barkley is the next highest, and you have Pacheco is probably not going to play. Is that where we're at with Pacheco? Oh, no, he was full practice, so he's going to play.
Yeah.
So Pacheco's back. that actually, I think, kind of makes Jarek super intriguing. Because now no one will play Jarek. But we're into December, Jarek time, the closer we get to the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think Pacheco will get popularity as well, and he should, because like just the spot, the price, everything. But I like the Jarek call for that reason.
Well, it would either be like just trying to get different on this slate. It would either be Jarek for me or Gus, now that Mitchell's out for the year.
Yeah,
terrible matchup. No one wants to play Gus, but they'll just continue to use him.
Yeah, I think people are still going to play Gus here because just there's no options. People are not playing Barkley at 6,800. I just can't see how they get there.
I don't see how you get there either.
It's tough. That's what I'm saying. But you'd have to. That's how you have to look at it. But I think
Jacobs has not practiced yet this week, but Antonio Pierce says that he's going to play. I don't know whether that means he's going to be in the split with Zamir White, how much he's going to play, whether he gets all the work. It's a great spot.
Yeah. And you can get those check downs too. Like
that's what I mean. If
so.
you believe in his health enough that he's going to be out there to the normal extent that Josh Jacobs plays, then all of a sudden he's a great play. But if he's in any sort of committee, he's a terrible play.
What ends up looking kind of unique, though, is like I wonder, and we're going to build lineups. I know we're only on running back, but if you go like a Jacobs, McKinnon, you can definitely get away with McCaffrey at that point. And then you're going Philly passing attack, where instead of what we just saw with all those Kansas City receivers, you now can easily afford with a $6,200 Jacobs and a $5,200 McKinnon, hoping that game just goes that way on the ground. You can afford the Hurts with Devontae's or whoever you want to play him with, AJ, whatever
Hey,
that looks
I have $1,900 left per player after filling out my lineup. I don't think that's going to work. Hurts, AJ Brown, and Devonta Smith with Jacobs, McKinnon, and McCaffrey doesn't work, unfortunately.
No, you're not going to get that. I'm saying, but we had no Philly passing guys. You had Hurts and Swift. So clearly you got to know that on this slate, when you've got the Wandales, the Slaytons, the who do we talk about? Rice is going to be popular on this slate. And then the other stuff, you're just not going to see a guy. It's just like what we did in the previous spot, though. You're going to have to pick your dude. You're not going to get them all. We just had to go through Tyreek and Lamb. You couldn't get both. We didn't get a Tyreek Lamb lineup out of all those ones we did. We got one or the other. In this case, it's the same thing. Do you like Devontae Smith or do you like A.J. Brown? Let's just do Devontae for cheaper, for example.
Okay, so Jacobs, McKinnon, McCaffrey, Devontae Smith.
Yeah, and he's cheaper. And then you go to Goddard is 4,700. And now, who was the cheap D we were getting earlier? We were getting Vegas D. And now I think it fits the same as what we had before, almost like Wandale and Slayton. Yeah, exact same guys fit in. And you've got the 3-2 Philly New York Giants. So you've got Hurts, Devontae, Goddard with Slayton and Wandale on the run back, McKinnon and Jacobs with the D, and who cares because it's just McKinnon you got going against them, and you still get to McCaffrey. It projects 8 points less than the original, and this is a way more unique lineup.
Let's build a Lamar lineup.
Let's do it. Disrespect, too, by the way. Disrespect to those Ravens. 5.5-point underdogs.
Well, I did see that.
See that one?
I forget who said it's like it's disrespectful that how did they not think like to?
Yeah, I'm a Ravens fan. I don't know. I'm fine. I just think it's. I'm just more so making fun of the bit. That's what they're saying is like it's disrespectful. Lamar also said it's not a Super Bowl preview, so we in December. Like who cares?
Lamar with Bateman.
Okay.
And what's Beckham?
No, I'd get Likely in.
For sure, Likely 42.
Yeah, 42. I love that.
Like, do we just keep stacking this up? Do we just say Beckham as well? Because we save a bunch of money with Beckham.
I think I would see where you're at with this. You already have savings, 33 and 4,200. If you like Bateman more than Beckham, let's leave it like that. Or if we substitute in Beckham, do that. We could build a full overstack later. But where are we going here? Like, is this where you're getting Swift in?
I don't know. I was just checking on Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is limited. It looks like he is going to play on Monday.
I think he's going to play, but I think you could also get off of him and just use Bateman. Like
sure, but I don't think many people will use him, even in Lamar stacks.
Yeah.
That maybe we throw him in too.
I would just take out Bateman for him. It's really, literally one of the biggest Ravens fans. You're not seeing very many games where these guys are all getting there, even on a 3-game slate. So
okay.
I like what you said, though. The Zay play for 5,500 when even if he gets, 15 to 20%, like that's nothing. And if he goes off, he's going to be a guy that's going to be with Lamar.
Yeah, you need a stupid 70 for 77 and a touchdown.
I think it's going to be like Lamar, Zay, and Likely. Like that is very likely, if you will. So there you go. So I could go that route, and you still have almost 5,500 left per spot. I just think now you got to think carefully of what you're doing because we're not on Hurts, who's going to be extremely popular. Is that where you leverage with Swift based on that? And
I would say that we cannot play McCaffrey in this lineup.
Do you like Debo?
Yeah.
So
Or actually, you know what? I like Ayuk at 67 better.
okay, I don't mind that either.
So we'll throw in Ayuk. Throw in a defense. What defense would you go with? Do we just say Raiders and...
Could you go with like Raiders and Jacobs and just play the cheap prices, or could you go Kansas City with Pacheco and hope he does something? If not, go even McKinnon. I don't know how you want to play it. I just think like you got to think through it. Like definite
Chiefs with Pacheco, I think, because if we're gonna say that it's
I like that.
Ravens and everything works, like we could throw in another 49er into this lineup too. I don't think that hurts us all that much.
Can you get Debo in here?
You probably could.
Leaves you 2,900. If I go Swift, I think Swift.
Yeah, it depends on who you have. But if we use Pacheco with Chiefs D, then we're essentially canceling out the Chiefs offense. We're saying Kelsey doesn't do anything, Jarek doesn't do anything, Rice doesn't do anything, Mahomes doesn't do anything. It's actually just scored this way. So I think that logically that makes sense.
Yeah, especially when you're, like you just said, you nailed it. Lamar is saying no to Mahomes and saying no to Hurts. So it kind of makes sense to put those running backs in. I did just remember the craziest thing that you'll laugh at because I know you know this. Remember who for Philly crushes the Giants?
Boston Scott.
Boston Scott, and he's 4,300. Has he even played?
I barely.
I know Gainwell was getting in on the action. Yeah, 1 snap, 3 snaps, 6 snaps. Are they just going to troll everybody and bring his ass in for 4,300 and just do something? I don't know, but Gainwell is 48. He's only 500 more, and he actually has been playing like half the snaps every week. Six. I mean, he got a target. He's had games with targets, like everything. Like, I don't know. Like Gainwell is at least somewhat interesting if you want to hope for something here. But you can just play Swift and get away with it too. We still have 5,300 left.
Well, what if we just play Jacobs instead
of Swift?
Yeah.
Okay. I think if you play Jacobs, do you like playing him with Pacheco, or do you like just sticking with what we had with McKinnon earlier and then just decide on?
I mean, if Pacheco's going to play, Pacheco's the better play.
Okay, so Pacheco,
and I think I don't want to say that we're different enough using Lamar, but I think we're different enough not using McCaffrey.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. And that's one of the things here, too. I didn't realize Debo was $1,000 more than Ayuk on this. I like your Ayuk call, and even if others do, I kind of am still okay with that. I like this spot for him.
So if I throw in Jacobs, we have $5,100 left for all of these guys. I mean, we could play Kittle and Ayuk, and say that's how they score.
Yeah,
along
what's
with
that
the
look
Ravens.
like? What does Kittle do here?
And that gives us $4,800 for a receiver. Unfortunately,
that range
there's no
is
one
in
that range.
Wow. Man, that's interesting then. If you go down to your original take on Bateman, we're 100 short of Devontae Smith. Can't do that. Yeah, it puts us in a tough spot. Could you go, let's get Kansas City D and just say who cares and go the other way with it?
And just take Vegas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Either or.
We have Jacob, so that tracks.
It still kind of tracks, and that gets us 5,700.
Which doesn't...
Another no man's land.
Yeah. You could have Gus Edwards, but then you'd have to reconfigure because we need a receiver. Well, that's tough. What if we just change Ayuk to Debo? And now we have $4,700 for a receiver.
It lands you nowhere. I think you have to change Pacheco to Rice, and it gets you Gus Edwards. Oh, you're off by $100, but you already have the other side of it.
Pacheco to Rice. Yeah, we're already rolling an onslaught here.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's what I said. Like, yeah, and just it's hard to see that get there. But Ayuk and Kittle is also the part of the problem. You got both. What if you take Ayuk out and just go Kittle, double tight end?
I have Kittle still in. I have Kittle and Debo in.
Yeah, you went up. I'm saying that takes me in an even worse spot because I have 1,000 less to use. I was just looking at like, what if you just played Kittle instead of the receivers? Like, what if we do this? What if we go Zay, Bateman, Kittle, and get Likely out of there, and then see if we can get the double.
There we go.
In there. Let's try that.
We get Bateman
with Zay.
With Zay and Debo.
And let's take. I took Rice back out to go back just to see what it looks like.
That gives us to a $5,600 flex if we want to.
Which is, please tell me we have somebody.
Clyde, McKinnon, Myers.
It's that same area we ended in. Damn. Okay. Who's at 66? Oh, okay. Here's one. You take out Debo, and you can get Ayuk and Rice.
Okay. I like that more.
That's not horrible. I know you got 2 guys against your D, but it's a 3-game slate. It doesn't matter. So Jacobs with the D, and then you've got Rice, Pacheco, and then the stack is Lamar, Zay, Bateman with Kittle and Ayuk. That's pretty nice.
All right, so let's do that. There is one more I wanted to build.
Yeah.
And it's basically the same lineup, but we take Lamar out and put in Purdy because Purdy just scores 30 points a week.
Yeah.
Could be good on this slate. And he's not. And
Always
he's
play Joe Montana when you're $6,700.
And he's the fourth most expensive guy.
Yeah. So now,
you don't have to change much because you have Ayuk and Kittle in here.
that's true. Yeah.
And you hope that there's no rushing touchdowns from Debo or.
I think you can swap Ayuk with Rice
Why?
because then you'll be able to get. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, we have them both.
Oh, you almost get.
We have them both in anyway.
You get Devontae. I meant like their positioning place, and then you take out Rice and leave Pacheco, and it gets you 7,300, which is Devontae Adams. I thought it would get you 7,500 for Kelsey though.
Who is the worst tight end that we could play on this slate?
Oh, probably lots.
Michael. Well, Michael Meyer is $3,300, but he's not practicing. Like he showed up on the injury report Thursday out of nowhere.
Hooper
and didn't
2,500.
practice. That would be the guy. Would be Hooper.
So let's get Hooper in for Kittle for a second to see what that does. 10-3. We can get up to McCaffrey now and a better defense.
And this is still with Pacheco, Jacobs, Rice, Flowers, Bateman.
Yeah, I was just trying to see those. If you've got like Pacheco, Hooper, we don't have Swift. Let me see if we can fit him now. Can we?
Why you're really big on Swift? I'm not big on Swift.
It's not really about that. Okay, this lineup's perfect. That's what I landed on, and
Okay.
it projects the best. It's about like you're saying Hurts is dead in the water here at $7,900. How did it like Philly is 14-point favorites
How do
at
they
home?
score?
How do
Yeah.
they score?
Defense.
So this lineup is actually really nice. It's Purdy with Ayuk and McCaffrey. You got Bateman and Zay Flowers on the run back. You have Pacheco with Austin Hooper secondary stack, and it lands you on DeAndre Swift with the Philly D.
Oh,
That is a nice lineup right there.
there we go. All the money, ours. Don't use it. It's mine.
Don't dupe us. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. Like, again, it's not always how it works out, and there's so many things that are going to be stupid here. Like, literally, the Giants could go off. Philly's pass D is atrocious. It just got cooked by Drew Lock to end the game last week. I would expect them to bounce back here at home, but I'm saying anything can happen on these slates. But like you mentioned, going to this Brock Purdy side and just mixing it up, are people going to be playing Purdy, Ayuk, CMC? Yes, or some versions of it, but then are they going to bring Bateman and Zay Flowers and use up all three wide receiver slots on two Ravens and a 49er? Probably not.
Oh, you have Ayuk and not Rice. I was like, I don't have any 49er pass catchers.
That's what you got. That's what I'm saying. So you get
no,
the
I still had Rice in and not Ayuk.
And
so
again,
the
with
other way to
Hooper,
play,
yeah,
there is one other way to play this, I think.
Okay.
Get rid of Flowers, get rid of Swift,
Okay.
flex Likely, and then you can have. Nah, you don't get it. You'd have to completely give up on the Eagles because you could almost fit in Debo as well. And just say the 49ers scored 50 points.
Yeah, I could drop the Philly D down now too, though, to the
to 3,000.
Kansas City, but it only gets me 7,500, which is at that spot I can't.
You'd have
get.
to switch to it doesn't work.
Oh no, you could do this one though. Doesn't Rice return kicks?
I don't think so.
I thought he did sometimes, but
Mecole Hardman was activated, so I
that's
assume it's
true.
going to be him.
You can get Purdy, McCaffrey, Debo with just Bateman on the run back, and then only Vegas guy you have is Hooper. You get Bateman and Likely. Hooper's your run back, but then you have Pacheco, Rice, and Kansas City D to round it out. 3 Kansas City guys if you think they can just smash here, but you have no Philly, no Giants.
Yeah, I think we got to go back to what I had before.
The one we had before was nice.
So it was Purdy, Ayuk, Flowers, Bateman, with McCaffrey. And who was it? McCaffrey
Purdy,
and Pacheco,
Ayuk,
right?
Flowers, Bateman. Yeah, it was Hooper and Pacheco,
Hooper, that's right.
McCaffrey, and then Swift and his defense.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's got a shot, at least.
You could also do that exact same thing if you wanted to and have $800 left over with Jacobs and Raiders D instead of Swift and Eagles D, it looks like. Unless I'm missing someone here.
No, you're good. I just, like I said, I won't necessarily leave that game. Like, even this lineup here, it still projects okay and leaves that game out, but I just don't see how Philly 14-point favorites coming off of pretty bad, like a couple bad losses now.
Yeah, you would need the score of that game to be like 14-10 Eagles.
And division game. I know people say like there's ways that things can happen, but yeah, it's really tough to imagine. So yeah, I like that and kind of like this slate actually. It's it's a fun slate for Christmas.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's what I like that about it. I do like that there's many different ways that you can go. We have 3 good games, and even though even though it's the Raiders versus Kansas City, it's Kansas City. You still got Mahomes, Kelsey, all those guys. Even though it's a division game, but Philly and New York, you still get good options there. And then I really love the game, obviously, on Monday night, even outside of being a Ravens fan. It's an awesome game to see how that thing goes. It could go way under, though. Sometimes you see these teams, these like 2 teams that put up all these points, and then everyone sees it play out, and then it ends up being like the 14-10 game or something. It's just all defense.
That would be bad news for this lineup.
It would be.
I'll enter that one, and we'll be good to go on that front. You can play in the Christmas Day Listeners League along with the Sunday Listeners League. Merry Christmas, man.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody out there. We'll be back. Got a lot of coverage this weekend. We got the normal show on Sunday, Mayo Media Network, 9:45 a.m. Eastern. We're still talking main slate. I think next week is the last Thursday night football game, so I think we'll have the Monday Night Football show. Sorry, we won't, because it's set up for this. We have a 3-game slate show that we're doing, but Thursday Night Football back on the Mayo Media Network to round things out as well.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a Monday game the following week.
Right. I think that's what I meant. Island games, I think, besides obviously Sunday Night Football, I think end next Thursday for the Monday-Thursday games. So
all right.
Next Thursday, I think, is the last one.
That'll do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Smash a like and sub to the channel while you're here. Rate and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that fun stuff. Tell some friends about the show. That always ends up helping. And again, 9:45 a.m. Eastern time on Mayo Media Network live. Tambo, Hoop, and the gang at shipitnation.com. Code Mayo over there if you want to get in on 10% off of all of their stuff. But that show is free, and they'll have all of the updates for you in terms of injuries, new lineups, how to build them, and maybe all the lineups we just built will all win $1 million, and we'll all be rich for Christmas. So we'll have $1 million, then Christmas, and it'll be a great holiday season. Wouldn't that be nice, right? Thank you all for watching. I'm Pat Mayo. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!